Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. My name is Hallie and I'm so happy that you're here. In today's video, we're going to be going over my September and October reading wrap up. I'm going to be splitting it up as per usual by each month. I'm going to start off with my stats for the month and then we will get into what books I read, what I rated them, and I'll also try and put in some pictures for like the vibes and aesthetics for the books as well. I've been trying to do that more and more recently if I can find any good like pictures that I feel like encapsulate the vibes for the story. So for all the books that I can find them, I'll try and insert those in as well as I'm talking about them. So starting off with the month of September. In September, I read 4 books. I read 1 romance, 1 fantasy, and 1 lit RPG. I read a total of 2,000 pages. The longest book that I read was 560 pages, and the shortest book that I read was 432 pages. My average rating was 4 stars, which honestly I feel like is so good. I feel like September was the month that I really started to fully come out of my summertime reading slump. And out of the 4 books that I read, 3 of them I had already owned. Like they started off on my 2025 original physical TBR, and only one of them was a book that I had bought in this year. So I feel like honestly September was a really good reading month for me. Even though I didn't read like a ton of books, I was coming out of my slump, so like I was just like having the best time. And honestly I just was really busy September because I was launching the book club, so I feel like I wanted to read more. I just like didn't have the time to read as much as I wanted. But honestly I had a really good reading month September. I was just like living my best life, being out of my reading slump finally. So to get into the books that I read in September, the first book that I read was the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook, and I actually listened to this on audio. This is the 3rd book, I believe, in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. If you don't know what the Dungeon Crawler Carl series is, you're basically following our main character who survives like an alien takeover of the planet, and after surviving the alien takeover of the planet, the like alien syndicate that has taken over their planet basically gives any surviving humans the option to either enter these dungeons that they have made and essentially join an intergalactic survival game show, or try and survive on the planet which no longer has any technology, any electricity. Every single building on the entire planet has been demolished. Like there's nothing left for you there. So basically it's like you're gonna go in the tunnels and try and survive. So we follow our main character and his ex-girlfriend's cat and they enter the tunnels, and you basically follow them in their journey through the different levels of the dungeon that they enter and like their survival on this game show. And this is a subgenre of science fiction, I believe, and it's called lit RPG, which is like literary role play game, I believe. Basically because the book has a lot of video game elements. Like as he's going through the dungeon, if he kills bosses, he can like level up his different stat points, and he gets like loot boxes and all of this stuff. And the audiobook specifically for this series is so good because the narrator does like different voices for every single characters. I feel like they add in like little sound effects for things as well because it is like the RPG thing. And so like whenever there's system messages that come up or like things like that, like it's so immersive. Like it just sounds so good. And honestly it's so crazy because the books are so unhinged because obviously he's like fighting aliens and like trying to survive, so there's like so much going on, but it has such good comedic relief. And honestly by this point, because like I said, I'm on like the 3rd book in the series, I am attached to the characters, and I did not think that I would get attached to the characters because like the first book, it's just like chaos, like start to finish. It's just like there's so much unhinged stuff going on that it's just like pure entertainment, right? Like I'm just here for the chaos and here to be entertained. But by this point it's like I'm so attached to even the cat. Tell me why one of my favorite characters from the series so far is literally the cat. Princess Donut, I love you. So I'm really enjoying the series. I'm really excited to continue on with the series as well. I am going to be continuing on with it in audio format. I genuinely think the best way, like the god tier way to read this series is to do an immersive read so that you can like read it while immersing yourself through the audio. I actually have been rereading this series with Marky because I just loved it so much and I knew that he would like it, so I got him to start it as well, and we've been doing an immersive read together. So like anytime that we both have time, which honestly is pretty rare because we're both just always so busy, but anytime that we both have some spare time, we'll put on the audiobook just like on speaker, and then we'll lay down in bed and like both hold our Kindles and like read at the same time. So that's been really fun. And honestly it's been so interesting to like reread the first book while I'm like still in the middle of the series, because it's like it just reminds me of so many things that have happened and like where we started, and like now knowing certain things, it's like I kind of pick up on different things that I didn't even think twice about whenever I first read the book. So that's been really fun to do like the reread. But we have been doing the immersive read when we do that, and I just think that that is like the superior way to read this series because the audiobooks are so good. I just really like immersive reading. So my final rating for this book was 4.75 stars. I really enjoyed it, and like I said, I cannot wait to continue on with the series and get farther into it. I know that the last book, well, it's not the last book, but like the most recent book in the series was just released, and that book is like 800 pages long or something crazy like that. So I'm very interested to see like where the series is going to go, especially because in the third book I feel like there was a lot of like, not like political things dropped, but there was just like a lot more plot heavy information rather than like just pure chaos. I mean, it was still definitely chaos, but I just feel like the third book laid a lot of groundwork for like the plot to really expand in the next coming book. So I'm very excited to get to those. The next book that I read was Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I ended up rating this book 3 stars. If you don't know what Wild Love is, Elsie Silver is the author that wrote the Chestnut Spring series, which is like insanely popular. And this is the first book to her new interconnected small town romance series. I think it's called Rose Hill, like the Rose Hill series or something like that. But basically this interconnected series, it's small town romance, but each book follows a single dad. But I feel like most of them are single dads in a very like unconventional way, or like not the way that you would expect them to be. Like I'm pretty sure the last book in this series is like the girl is dating her ex-boyfriend's dad or something like that, and so like that's why he's like a single dad. Take that with a grain of salt. Like this one, the male main character is a single dad because he had donated to a sperm bank 14 years ago or something, or 13 years ago, and randomly one day this girl shows up knocking on his door and is like, hey, you're my dad, and he's like, no, I'm not, you're mistaken. So yeah, basically just small town romance. They meet each other, they fall in love. I thought it was cute. I don't think that I like it as much as the Chestnut Springs series, and by I don't think, I mean I don't. I don't know why I said I don't think. I don't know, it was just like, okay. I am still excited to try the other books in the series, but so far I'm liking Chestnut Springs a little bit more, which I know is unfair because I have read 3 Chestnut Springs books and only 1 Rose Hill book, so we'll have to see once I read more Rose Hill books like which one I end up preferring. But so far, especially because the last Chestnut Springs book I read was Powerless, and that was like a blinding 5-star. That was so good. That was actually my first 5-star in the Chestnut Springs series, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about Wild Love. This 3 stars. It was good. It's nothing, you know, to write home about. It was just decent. It was cute. It was fine. I don't really think about it too much though, if I'm being completely honest. After finishing it, I just kind of moved on to the next book. The next book that I read, I actually don't have the dust jacket on the book because I can't find it, so ignore that. But the next book that I read was The Road of Bones. This book and the next book, I believe, I pulled in my Read It or Unhaul It jar for a Read It or Unhaul It episode that I did over on Patreon, so that was so fun. And I'm honestly so glad that I pulled it because this is one that I've kind of been like avoiding or like procrastinating just because the cover of the book was like giving serious and it was intimidating me. That's like a recurring theme of books on my bookshelf where it's like, ooh, that sounds so good, but then I get really intimidated because I feel like the cover is giving serious. Like, I don't know. Does anybody else do that? Because sometimes I feel crazy for doing that. But anyway, I'm so glad I ended up pulling it because I really enjoyed this book. And honestly, since finishing it, I think that I would raise my rating from like what I put it on Goodreads, because since finishing it, I have genuinely thought about this book so much, and I'm so excited to read the next books in the series. Because also when I finished this, I was thinking to myself like, oh my god, I have to wait for the next books to come out. And then I looked it up and I'm like, girl, there's like 2 or 3 books that are already out. Like, what are you doing? So I'm very excited to read more books in this series. So at the time that I finished reading this, I rated it 4 stars, and on my Goodreads it's 4 stars. I think if I would go back to rate it now, I probably would rate it like 4.25 or 4.5 because I just like keep thinking about it and it was so good. So in this book, we're basically following our main character, Scylla. Her and her dad are currently on the run, and in the very beginning of the book, they're basically like attacked and her dad ends up being killed, and his last words to her are that she needs to try and travel the Road of Bones, which is like a really notoriously deadly like trail or path to take in order to get to this place called Kappa, which apparently she will be safe at and like won't have to be on the run anymore. So she sets off on this quest on the Road of Bones because her father told her that that is what she needs to do in order to reach a safe place. And you're following her. I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to spoil anything, but I really liked this. This ended up surprising me because it ended up having like a little bit of a love triangle, and I did not see that coming at all. And I love a love triangle because of this, actually, because I've mentioned this a few times and a bunch of you guys have told me that I need to read Lightlark because apparently that has like a really good love triangle in it. So I am considering purchasing that series because I love a good love triangle. But that was really good. The magic system in this was really good. Honestly, there was really good found family in this as well, which I wasn't really expecting because you're like just following her on this like dangerous path trying to get to this town. But it was really good. I enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to continue on with this series as well. The last book that I read in September was again from the Read It or Haul It video that I was just talking about, Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I literally cannot believe that I finally read this trilogy, and let me tell you, it did in fact live up to the hype. I was a little bit nervous because like so many people just like rave over this series, and I read Caraval because a bunch of people said you should read Caraval before Once Upon a Broken Heart, because if you read Once Upon a Broken Heart, there's a few things that get spoiled for the ending of the Caraval trilogy in this book, and so like it might lessen your, not your enjoyment of Caraval, but like your interest in Caraval, because you know like something really big that happens at the end of those books. So that's why I decided to read Caraval first, and I honestly like the Caraval trilogy was good. It just wasn't my favorite, honestly. Like it was just okay. They're not my favorite books. However, I can fully say now, having read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, that I fully stand behind that, and I would fully recommend that if you're interested in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, that you read the Caraval trilogy first. Even though like I didn't love those books, honestly I think that's a 3-star series, but the groundwork it lays for the Once Upon a Broken Heart series I feel like is so important. It just gives you so much background on the different magical gods and like the magic system and the world in general. Like I feel like going into this was so much easier because I already knew all of the background information from the Caraval trilogy. So highly recommend reading that first, even though like I said they're like okay books, not nearly as good as the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy in my opinion. I do think that it is beneficial to read that beforehand for the simple purpose of like making this trilogy better, if that makes sense. My final rating for this book was 4.25 stars. I really enjoyed it. If you don't know what the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy is about, we're basically following our main character Evangeline, who ends up making a deal with the Prince of Hearts, Jax, whose magic is he basically has like deadly kisses. Anyone that he kisses will die besides his one true love. So she ends up making a deal with him, and she owes him like 3 kisses that he can tell her like who she needs to kiss at any given point. And she does that in order to save her true love, who was in danger. And basically that is what sets us off on our journey. I don't really want to say much other than that because I don't want to spoil anything, but it was just so good. I feel like Stephanie Garber's writing, especially in this trilogy, is just so whimsical, magical, fairy tale, just so good. So that is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, and the last book that I read in the month of September. Moving on to October with my October stats. In the month of October, I read 10 books. I read 1 romance, 5 fantasies, 2 mystery thrillers, and 1 dystopian. I read a total of 3,819 pages. The longest book that I read was 448 pages, and the shortest book that I read was 240 pages. My average rating was 4.17, which I feel like is so good. Honestly, October might have been like my best reading month of the year because I was fully out of my slump and I finally had the time to read as much as I was wanting to. So I was just like having the best time. I feel like I did a lot of mood reading in October, so that's also why like my average rating ended up being quite a bit higher, because I was just reading what I was in the mood for, and I was in the mood for books that I thought were going to be 5 stars. So I had a really good reading month in October. Out of the 10 books, 6 of them I previously owned, so they started off on my 2025 physical TBR, and out of the 10 books, only 4 of the books were books that I did not previously own and that I bought at some point during this year. So honestly, I feel like that's really good. I've really been trying to prioritize my physical TBR. I am once again going to make it a new goal going into 2026 to prioritize my physical TBR, because I feel like I did a really good job in the first few months of 2025 and then I kind of fell off from prioritizing it, but I think we can get back on track in 2026. So getting into the books that I read in October. The first book that I read in October was The Spell Shop, and this was so cute. I ended up rating this book 4 stars, and honestly I feel like this book really solidified for me the fact that I love cozy fantasy, and I talked about this in the vlog that I read it in. I feel like I really like cozy fantasy because I just love fantasy. Like fantasy is 100% I think the biggest genre that I read in and like the genre that I most gravitate to, but because of that I feel like a lot of the times I end up reading really long fantasies and fantasies that are part of like an 8-book series, and along with that comes just like a lot of high stakes, high emotions, trauma, you know what I'm saying? And so sometimes it's like I want to be in a fantasy world, but I don't want to have to commit to like another 8-book series or going through the trauma. Like sometimes I'm craving that heartbreak and craving that intensity and that high stakes aspect, but something about a cozy fantasy, like being able to be in a fantasy world and like get some of that whimsy and some of the magic and getting to see like the different types of magical beings and all that stuff without it being super high stakes. I just love it. I just love it. It feels like a warm, cozy hug. So I'm so excited to read the next book in this series because I do have that on my shelf as well. And I've heard that that one is a little bit more like wintry vibes. This one's definitely more like autumnal, cozy fall vibes. But I think the next one in the series is definitely more winter leaning. So I'm really excited to hopefully read that in December or January. But if you don't know what the spell shop is about, we're basically following our main character who is a librarian in a magical city where a lot of types of magic are becoming outlawed. In the very beginning of the book, there's like this rebellion that starts happening in her city, and the city is like being burnt down. So she takes as much as she can take from the library to like save sacred magical texts, and she ends up fleeing back to her home island that she hasn't been back to since she was a kid to basically like flee from danger. And while she's there, she realizes like, okay, I need a way to make money, I need a way to survive on the island, and she starts looking around for different needs, and she's like, I could solve a lot of these problems with magic that I have in these spell books, but since magic is forbidden, she needs to kind of hide it and make it seem more like practical remedies, but they're actually magic. And so she opens her own little secret spell shop and starts selling remedies to all of the townsfolk, and you kind of just follow her little journey there. It is so cute. We're following her and also her magic sentient spider plant, which I ended up really loving his character, which is so funny because he's literally like a talking plant, but I loved him so much. So I'm so excited to read the next book in this series. I need to read more cozy fantasy because I love cozy fantasy. The next book that I read was The Return of Ellie Black. I ended up rating this one 3.25 stars. If you don't know what this book is about, this is very much like a true crime-esque mystery thriller. Basically, in the beginning of this book, what happens is in this small town 20 years prior, there was a teenage girl named Ellie Black who went missing without a trace, and 20 years later she randomly shows up in the forest and is found. But when she's found, she can't remember any details about where she has been for the past 20 years. And it was really interesting because this book has multiple POVs, and one of the POVs was Ellie Black herself, and it was really interesting because like we'll be going back and forth between like the detectives trying to like uncover the past and look at different clues and figure out like, okay, where has she been this whole time? Like, how did she survive this? How did she just show back in the woods? Like, how did she escape? Where did she escape from? As they're asking questions, we'll like switch to her POV and be like, they think this is what happened, but let me take you back to that night and tell you what happened. And then we like kind of watch what happened through her POV, and then it will cut off, and then we have to try and like uncover more secrets and connect more dots and things like that. So I thought it was really good. It was really fast paced, very entertaining, and it very much felt like watching like a true crime documentary. I think because we were like going through the process of going over the night and looking at different details and lining up the timeline and just different things like that, it very much was like the same vibes as like when you're watching a true crime documentary and you know what happens already, but then it's like you have to go back and like see how things got there, or like how things led to where they were, and there's like still some hidden secrets that you didn't know about before and they're like being uncovered. I thought it was really good, really entertaining, a really solid mystery thriller. The next book that I read was Sunrise on the Reaping. This was so devastatingly good. I rated this 5 stars. If you don't know what this is basically a prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, and in this book we're following Haymitch's story, which I literally like. The Hunger Games and Twilight, those are the only series that I ever read as a teenager, so those are like the only 2 series that I have like book nostalgia for because those are the only ones that I read obviously as a kid, and like I have that like childhood attachment to. And I literally remember even reading it as a teenager and like wishing that there was a book out that had Haymitch's story. So getting to read this as an adult was like such a weird moment because I was like, I've literally dreamt about getting his full backstory for so long, and I never thought that it would actually happen. And this was like everything that I hoped it would be, but also so different than I was expecting. And I feel like this book more than anything made me want to reread the Hunger Games trilogy as an adult, because I feel like there were so many things in this book where I'm just like, I feel like I see so many parallels between him and Katniss, and it was so good. 5 stars. It was so good. The next 2 books that I read were actually the last 2 books in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. These were both 5 stars. These were so good, specifically The Ballad of Never After. The second book, definitely my favorite in the trilogy. This was so painfully good, and I think about this book specifically, I think the most in the trilogy, like out of all three of them. I feel like the events that happen in this book like stuck with me the most, and I definitely think that like it's close between these two because I did really enjoy the third book in the series as well, but this just is like so good, like so good. Definitely my favorite Stephanie Garber book that I've read so far out of the 6 of them that I have read by her. I don't really want to go too much into like what happens in these books because obviously this is the second and the third book in the trilogy, so like I can't really say anything without spoiling what happens in the first book, but all I can say is read Caraval because it is so worth it because it just gives so much depth to this series, and then once you get to these two, you'll just be eating dessert. Just trust me, these were so good. Honestly, I wish that there was more Jackson Evangeline. The next book that I read was The Rose Bargain. This was so good. 5 stars. Honestly, I have not stopped thinking about this book since I read it. If you don't know what The Rose Bargain is about, it's basically set in like Regency era matchmaking season, but in this world there is a fae queen who once a year, I think for like a few months of the year, once you turn 18, she gives you the opportunity to make a bargain with her, like a magical bargain where she will give you something that you ask for and then you give her something in return that she decides what it is, and she kind of decides like what the trade will be on a whim. So like she might take literally anything from you. So for example, like if you want straighter teeth, she'll be like, okay, give me your pinky toe. Or there was a character in this book who I think she bargained, like she wanted to be prettier. In return, she could no longer turn left at all. So like that was actually so funny in this book because there were so many moments where it's like everyone else is going this way and they're just like, sorry, like we'll see you in a little bit, and she's stuck doing a right turn so that she can make it that way eventually. And I just think it's the funniest thing ever. But just like random things like that, like people have bargained for land, they've bargained for houses, they've bargained for better memory, or just like literally anything you can think of, but you can only make one bargain. So like in this world, people know that like once you turn 18, you will be able to go and make your bargain. So you kind of like talk to your parents and prep like, okay, this is what you should ask for, like this is what you should try and bargain for. So I thought that that was really, really interesting. But there's a twist this matchmaking season because once the season starts, the queen announces that her son will be joining the season and she is going to give the girls the opportunity to compete for her son's hand in marriage. However, if you would like to enter the competition for her son's hand in marriage, you basically have to sign a blood binding magical deal that if you lose, you will agree to never marry, which in this time frame obviously is a really, really big deal because as a woman, it's like your biggest power in this time period was trying to like marry wealthy or marry, you know what I'm saying, like in order to gain power in that way. So it's like a really big risk to take to try and like marry the fae prince. And so our main character ends up joining the competition for the prince's hand in marriage, and we're basically following that competition to see who is going to win his hand in marriage, and it was so good. Honestly, I was expecting to really, really like it because this had really good reviews, but I liked it so much more than I even was expecting to. And honestly, I feel like this book really reminded me how much I like Regency era. It's so funny how this will happen because it's like one of my favorite settings and time periods for like TV shows and movies is the Regency era. Like I just love it so much. I honestly don't know what it is about it, but I eat it up every single time. But for some reason, I just never thought to maybe try and translate that over to books. And so after reading this, I'm like, I think I need more Regency era in my bookish life. So I am going to be trying to find more Regency era books, specifically like a fantastical or like fantasy Regency era. If you have any recommendations, I am in the market, so please let me know. But yeah, I loved this. I am actually dying for the second book to come out. I believe it comes out early next year, so I will be patiently, not really patiently, waiting for the next book to come out. And as soon as it comes out, well, okay, I say that, but I do that thing where like anticipated reads come out and then I just stare at them on my shelf for 6 months and I'm like, I can't read you. Hopefully that doesn't happen with the next book because the way that this ends, I'm just like, I need the next book now, like right now. This was so good. If you haven't read this and you like Regency era and fantasy, I feel like this book really reminded me, like if we're talking vibes wise, if Heartless Hunter, The Cruel Prince, and I guess the Selection series, because a lot of people do compare this to the Selection series. I just haven't read that yet, but if the 3 of those books had a love child, that would be this. And it's so good. So that is The Rose Bargain. The next book that I read was Daisy Hates. This was yet another 5-star read. I had like so many 5 stars back to back to back in October. It was actually crazy. Honestly, guys, after reading this, I feel like I can confidently say I think I'm a Daisy girly, and I did not expect that at all, honestly, because I did really enjoy Magnolia Parks, but this was just so good. Like, I actually still am kind of in shock with like how much I liked it, especially just because the premise of this book, like basically, if you don't know like the Magnolia Parks universe, it basically is like every other book alternates the main character and like main friend group. And so the first book, Magnolia Parks, we're following Magnolia and BJ and their like toxic, crazy, dramatic relationship. And then obviously in Daisy Hates, we're following our main character Daisy and her relationship with Christian, who, I did not know this until I read the synopsis for this book, is in love with Magnolia. And so I read that synopsis and I'm like, okay, well, there's no way that I'm gonna end up rating this highly or getting connected emotionally at all, because the main male character is in love with the main character from the first book and she's in love with her toxic ex-boyfriend. It just is so messy, guys. It's so messy, but it's so good. The way that this book ended, like the last words of this book sent me into a psychosis. Like, I literally started crying so hard. I was reading this in the middle of the night and I finished it and I just like, I had so much adrenaline from finishing the end of the book because it just was crazy. And like, I cannot wait to read the next Daisy book. And I feel like I completely understand now when people say like, it sucks so bad when you finish a Daisy book and then you have to like read an entire Magnolia book to get to the next Daisy book, because that's exactly how I'm feeling right now. Like, even though I really enjoyed Magnolia Parks, it's like I don't necessarily feel an urgency to pick up the next Magnolia book, but it's like I have to read it in order to be able to read the next Daisy book, and I just want to read the Daisy book right now. Like, I don't want to have to read the Magnolia book to get to the Daisy book. So like, I completely understand what people are saying there. So hopefully when I pick up the next Magnolia book, it is good and I like it and it doesn't feel like it's dragging on in order for me to get to this book. We'll have to see. But this was so painfully good, and I can't believe it because it's just so messy. Everybody, and when I say everybody, like every single person in this book is in love with the wrong person. Like, they're in love with somebody who's in love with somebody else, but somehow it works. Like, somehow it works. You know, I will say, and I say this every time I talk about the series, if you don't like messy, toxic drama, insaneness, you just will not like this series. But unfortunately for me, I live for the drama. I love the drama. I love the messy tea. So this is like right up my alley. So good. The next book that I read was Kingdom of the Wicked. I ended up rating this 3 stars, and actually this and Daisy Hates were both books that I pulled from a Read It or Unhaul It jar for another Read It or Unhaul It video that I did on YouTube. So if you want to watch that, you can go watch that on my channel as well. But this was just okay. I still have hope for the series, but it wasn't my favorite fantasy that I've read, and it didn't necessarily live up to the hype that I had built for it in my brain, but it was decent. I'll explain why. So basically, in this book, we're following Amelia, who is a witch, and she has a twin sister who's a witch, and she's like from a family of witches. And in the very beginning of the book, she ends up finding her sister murdered, and so she sets off to basically avenge her sister, find the person that killed her sister, and on that journey to avenging her, she ends up teaming up with one of the dangerous princes of hell. And that's basically what we're following, and I feel like that premise, like, so good, okay? So good. It started off so strong. I was so into it. I feel like you get right into the story. I love the setting. I love the vibes. I love the magic. Like, everything about it was like the perfect witchy vibes. And then towards like the middle of the book, it just slowed down so much, and I feel like just not very much was happening. I don't know, like, I just started to lose interest in the story and like where we were going, because just nothing was happening, and it didn't really feel like there was anything crazy enough going on to where like I had the motivation to finish going to figure out what was gonna happen. Like, I just wasn't on the edge of my seat at all. I don't know, it just was so weird, especially just like coming off of how strong the book started and it slowing down that much. I will say the ending of this book, I like the way that it ended, and it ended well enough to where like I do want to continue on with the series. And when I posted my review on Goodreads, there were some of you guys saying as well the next book in the series is much better than this one, and I think that the next 2 books in the series lean more towards like new adult or adult rather than like this one is YA. So I am very interested to see if I end up liking kind of like the vibe shift of those books as well a little better than this one. So we'll see when I read the second book if I end up liking it more than this one, and if I end up wanting to continue on with the third book as well. But it does feel good to finally have read this book, because I've had the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy on my TBR for the longest time. So hopefully I finish the next next 2 books soon and I can see if I like it, because I do also have the next kind of like interconnected series on my TBR as well, the like Throne of the Fallen or whatever. So I don't know, if I don't end up liking these ones, I might not read the Throne of the Fallen series. Let me know if you've read those ones and you think that you like it better than the Kingdom of the Wicked, or what your thoughts are on those, because this was just like, it was so much different than I was expecting, and it honestly was a little bit of a letdown, but then it's like it ended well. So I am excited to continue going on. I don't know. It was interesting. The next book that I read, I don't have a physical copy of because I actually rented the audiobook from my library, but it is My Sister, the Serial Killer. This was honestly so good. I ended up rating this one 3.5 stars. It was a very, very, very fast-paced mystery thriller. In this book, we're following 2 sisters, and our main character is the older sister, and we're basically following her story. She's a nurse, I believe, and she's kind of like secretly in love with one of her colleagues. Essentially, her younger sister keeps accidentally killing all of her boyfriends, and her being a very empathetic older sister can't help but to help cover for her sister and help her sister like get out of these situations and not get caught with murdering all of these guys. And one day her younger sister ends up meeting her colleague who she's secretly in love with, and of course her colleague is like enamored by her and he wants to start dating her sister, and she's like, no, don't do it. She literally keeps killing all of her boyfriends. Like, do not date my sister. And so we follow that. And literally on my Goodreads review, I said, I feel like this book should be called The Curse of Being an Empathetic Eldest Daughter, because this poor girl, she just cannot help but like be there for her sister and cover for her sister, and her sister is so ungrateful for like everything that her sister kind of like sacrifices in order to save her, basically. I don't know, it was so good. Honestly, it was so good. I feel like it was a really interesting portrayal of like the dynamics between siblings as well. It was really, really good. I've never read a book by this author before. I think that this author did recently come out with a book this past month, so I'm interested to see what that book is about and see if I'd be interested in reading that as well. But yeah, really, really good, really fast-paced, and a really entertaining mystery thriller as well. I would highly recommend. And then the very last book that I have for the month of October was actually our October book pick for the book club. It was The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reed. I ended up rating this one 3 stars. Basically in this book we're following our main character Eva Kay, who lives in the woods in this like pagan village full of women who have magical abilities, and she's like the only woman there that doesn't have any magical ability. So kind of all of the women in the village look down on her and look at her like she's been forsaken by the gods because she was born without powers. In this world, every single year the king sends his woodsman to this village in order to collect a girl for a blood sacrifice that he does, and that year the king specifically wants a seer. And so when the woodsmen arrive at the village saying that they want to take a seer for the sacrifice that year, all of the people in the village decide to send Eva Kay instead and basically sacrifice her in order to save their magic and like keep the other girl safe because she's like more valuable to them. So Eva Kay ends up being taken by the woodsman to travel back through these like dangerous magical woods all the way back to the capital in order to be the king's blood sacrifice. And that's basically where the story starts off, and that's like what we're following, is like her with the woodsman going back to be the sacrifice. I thought it was really, really good. I was a little bit conflicted because I didn't love some of the aspects of the ending of this book, and I was also kind of wanting a little bit more with the romance, but I think that that's just like the way that this book was written. I think it's definitely a more plot heavy fantasy, like definitely more on the fantasy side rather than the romantasy side, but like the little crumbs that we got of romantasy was so good. Like the tension in this book was palpable when it was there. It's just like I wanted more of it, but I think that's just like a my taste thing because the book was written really, really well. I feel like this had such good like political intrigue and like the history and like the background and the lore of the gods and the magic and like the world itself was like so well thought out and so well written. So yeah, it was really, really good. If you are interested in seeing like my full review for this book and like my full reading vlog for this book as well, it is up on the Patreon, and the link to the Patreon book club is always in my description box if you're interested in joining the book club. But yeah, I don't know, it was good. Like I don't know, I talked about it in that vlog too, but I feel very conflicted because there were so many parts of this book that I really, really loved, but then there was so many parts of the book that I like didn't fully love, or I just like wasn't fully engrossed in or like obsessed with. So it was good, and I feel like it was a little bit out of like not my comfort zone, but it was just like it's different than a lot of other books that I've read because it was so like politics heavy. But I do enjoy kind of like stepping out of my comfort zone and like reading books that are different than the books that I typically read, because that's how I've ended up finding some of my favorite reads, is whenever I read things that are a little bit different and I kind of like branch out. So that is The Wolf and the Woodsman, and the last book that I read in the month of October. With that being said, that brings us to the end of this little reading wrap up. I had a really amazing few months of reading, and I'm so excited to go into November and continue on with the good vibes. So that's pretty much all I have for today's video. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future content from me. Also, like I said, if you are interested in joining the Patreon book club, the link to that is always down in my description box below. We just started our November book read, which is Our Infinite Fates, and I'm so excited about that. So if you guys would like to read that along with us, make sure to join the book club. But yeah, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!